Good afternoon, everybody. Fergus Dolan here from NALA. We're delighted to have you here this afternoon for our digital learning webinar. Today's topic is supporting digital skills to create evidence of learning. And we're delighted to welcome Caroline Brennan. Caroline is a tutor with Dublin and Dún Laoghaire ETB, and she's going to be taking you through a presentation and some of her ideas on what she does. So over to you, Caroline, and all the best.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to share my screen with you now. It has been a while since I have been teaching online, so bear with me. My ICT skills might not be the best at this stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look today at how you can support your learners in those digital skills. So let me just minimize this guy here so we can get a better look at this. Okay, so what do we actually mean by those digital skills? So when you're supporting your learners with their digital skills, that can mean anything from helping them to use their smartphone, helping them to use their tablet, accessing a website, or using a particular app. And what we're probably most familiar with is helping our learners to use a computer. So how can we use this in our accredited classes? So the ones we're most familiar with are skills demonstrations to produce that evidence of learning, creating presentations, audio recording for a learner journal. So sometimes the writing can be a little bit of a barrier to some of our learners. So you might have these very rich conversations with the students in the class itself. And then when they go to put pen to paper, they start typing, the fact that they have to think about and consider the words that they're using, sometimes that can then translate that rich conversation into quite a dull response to what they have to talk about. So if you can give them the opportunity to create that audio recording or to create that video recording, sometimes you can then help that learner to increase what it is they're talking about and to increase the knowledge that they're sharing when you are actually helping them to create their evidence of learning for their QQI courses. Another approach can be taking photographs. So if they have to give an instruction, they might take a photograph step by step of what they're doing. So when they initially start, what they're looking at, how do they make a start, what are the tools that they need, the equipment that they need, they could take a little photograph of that, and then they could label that at a later stage. So they're taking the visuals, they're using their digital skills to take those photographs, and then they're adding to it at a later stage by the written instruction beside it. Another thing is we tend to give a lot of our learners comprehension questions, so a piece of reading and then answering the questions, but maybe it could be that they read as a group and then they could create their own recording of what it is they understood about the piece itself. So we consider pieces of evidence or evidence of learning a lot for our accredited courses because they are a requirement of the module itself. But I have found them to be equally useful for our non-accredited courses. So especially in building confidence in learning and their digital skills. So all the time we want to integrate our digital learning into our regular classes. For some, the goalposts can be shifting all the time, particularly in our digital skills classes. So learners don't always recognize how far they have come or what they have achieved because they're always thinking about the next thing that they need to learn. So what else am I missing? What else do I need to learn? So to actually take stock and see evidence of how far they've come, it can be really useful. So they have something there on the screen or on their tablet or on their smartphone that they can see what they've done. And then at the end, they might have an actual artifact. So they might have that video that they share with their friends or that they put up on YouTube, or you might even display it in the center if you have the facility to do that as well. So the benefits of this. So it's going to be easier to recount their learning for some. So in some cases, and particularly with ESOL students as well, sometimes pronunciation, and with literacy students, if you're increasing their vocabulary, sometimes pronunciation of words can be a little bit tricky. So actually, if they are recording what they're saying and able to listen back to things, it can help them improve how they are pronouncing words as well. For a lot of learners, it's easier for them to express learning in their own way. So if we are giving them a written assignment and they have to follow a particular format, sometimes that can be a barrier for them in expressing what they have learned. But if they can just kind of explain or discuss or express what it is they have gotten from the class on a particular topic, generally I find you get a lot more from the learners themselves. It can help them to realize how much knowledge they have gained. So again, it's about taking stock, and it's about having a common conversation in the class and then sharing those recordings to see the different perspectives that the students will have as well. So as we discussed, it removes the barriers for literacy and ESOL learners and enhances digital skills, their understanding and practice. So it's one thing to talk about how we use our digital skills, but really it's the doing that helps our learners. So if they are actually employing their digital skills, they're using their phones, they're using their computers, integrated into their other classes, that can really help improve and see the practical uses for it. And it helps to build their confidence. Okay, so if we build their confidence with their learning, they're more likely to use it in the future, and they're more likely to be confident with it. And it becomes then this virtuous cycle instead of the vicious cycle of I can't or I won't. So typically with our learners in non-accredited settings, we never get students that are all at the same level. So we always have students who are maybe confident in one area, not another, or maybe they're a little bit afraid of everything, or maybe they can do one particular thing that they're really confident with. So I typically describe this as a spectrum of learning. So if you have a project or if you have a common focus to help people come together as a group, not only does it help the group dynamic itself, but it means then that you have learners who are at lower levels with digital skills can be engaged in the same way with learners that have higher levels with digital skills. So we're all coming together using our skills in the ways that we can. So if we look at awareness, so with some of our learners, if we're working on a particular project, say we're going to make a video in the class of what we've learned. For some learners, that is going to make them aware of that particular topic, aware of the skills that they need, the steps that they need to take to be able to create that artifact. So for newer learners, it's an introduction to the topic, and you might want to pair those with others that have maybe those more advanced skills. So it's that pair share idea. For other learners, it may just help them to prove their understanding of the topic itself. So they might be aware of it, they might have heard about it on TV, they might have heard about it on the radio, but actually now they're improving their understanding of it. For others, it might be that confidence building piece. So because they recognize the topic, they understand it, they think, yeah, actually, maybe I know more than I realize. And they may have some skills, willing to try it out in the class, but maybe might not have taken that plunge by themselves. And finally, we have those that are interested in taking action. They have the skills, and these are the guys that you want to pair with those that are building on their awareness, building with their understanding. So when they're confident in their knowledge, people will choose to act. So when we take our learners, we help improve their awareness, we help improve their understanding, we build their confidence. They are then more likely to take action and actually use their digital skills on a regular basis. So we're going to take a little look at how I have used these in previous classes. So one of the things that I've done is, if we taught how to use the voice recorder in a smartphone class, I have then at the end, so we've gone through the theory, I've gone around and helped all the different learners to use this on their own phone. And then I've said, okay, we're going to split up into 2 groups or 3 groups or however many students you have in your class. You will know your learners better. Whether they'll work better in a big group or in pairs or in threes is totally up to you. And then they then had to use their voice recorder to be able to record the steps. Okay, so what have we learned in today's class? So they are actually recounting or relaying the learning that has happened there. And then we can play it back and we can hear and we can share the knowledge. So it's actually another way of getting repetition into the classroom, because repetition is going to be key with our literacy learners, our digital skills, and our ESOL learners as well. But if we repeat, we're going to bore the pants off them. They're not going to be as engaged with the class itself. But if we can think of different ways to have that repetition, so it's a different person saying it, it's a different way that we're hearing it, it really, really helps with the depth of learning with our students. So we can get the learners to photograph their work to share. Now, we're really lucky in our centre here. One of our tutors, Helen Cosgrave, once a year, she produces an Easter newsletter. So we encourage our students to use their digital skills. So they're typing up a story or a recipe or a joke or a saying or whatever it might be. And then she edits them all together. So then the learners can then have a little read of this over Easter. So it's really, really popular every year. So some things that have been really popular is actually the students going out and photographing. So if they go for a particular walk somewhere, they'll have nice little sunrises, sunsets, and things like that. So it can be absolutely anything of any interest that they can use in the newsletter itself. At the end of term, I have also got learners to create a video. So what I have learned, and this again is this group or this pair work where I'm not recording the students are recording each other. So they are responsible for the recording, for the file, being able to find it, and then being able to watch it back again. And that is generally lots of fun, because there's a little bit of trepidation initially because nobody likes to be recorded, usually in my classes anyway, but we make it that fun atmosphere. We make it a celebration of all of the things that they have achieved. And it really becomes kind of this moment of I can do it. So it really helps them to build their confidence with it as well. One of the things that I've done recently, and I'm going to show you a couple of videos that the students have made, is to actually make a video of how you use your phone. So again, this can be pair work, this can be group work, whichever way you want to work it. But one person will record another student or other students creating something on their phone, taking an action on their phone, answering a call, whatever it might be. So we'll take a look at that now in a second. Taking photos of a project and labeling it, we'll have a look at that in a second. And taking photos of a project, writing about it, typing it up and printing. So you're really integrating the literacy skills and the digital skills all together with this one. And our most recent one is QR codes. So with this one, you might be just spreading awareness to your learners about it. And then it's not until they actually discuss it or use it in the class that they really understand what they are there for. But if you can help them to create their own QR codes, there's no better way to learn something than to teach something. Then they will go out and teach other people about what they are and really embed that learning for themselves. So this is a project that I worked with an ITABI group. So we were doing a little piece on nutrition. So we had our plate and our portions, and they first of all drew pictures. So these are the veg on one side. So half your plate should be veg, a quarter should be carbohydrates, and a quarter should be your protein then. So we had all the conversations. So this is over a couple of classes. So we had the conversations about what are protein foods, what are carbohydrates, what is your favorite veg, all that type of stuff. And then they were able to write down the words that go with these pictures. So I got these students to photograph their work, and with the digital skills, part of it your students might be able to do, and part of it you might have to do. So don't put the burden of work on your student that they have to be responsible for every part of it. So you might have to step in and provide that scaffolding then to help them fulfill the brief or what it is that you want to achieve. Similarly, don't put the burden of work all on yourself either, so that you're kind of chasing them around and getting them to do things. Either they want to participate or they don't. And it's totally fine if people don't want to either. But we had two ladies in the centre. They were very willing participants and they photographed the work that they did. And I then took those photographs and emailed them to our tutor here, Helen, and she put those into her newsletter last year. So again, they're kind of having this watershed moment of, this is the learning that we have been working on for the last couple of weeks. This is the knowledge that we have gained. And then they are able to use their digital skills to share that with others. The next piece we're going to have a little look at, we run a summer program every year in the centre here. It's just a fun way for our regular learners to recap their skills over the year. And for new students that are joining us, it's just a very relaxed and fun atmosphere. Now, last year, our theme was numeracy. So we were looking at, in my class, we had made 3D shapes out of recycled materials. How are we going to make this cube or this rectangle, whatever it might be? And then one of our other tutors here, Breda, who was working on the summer program, she took that idea and ran with it, and she embedded the digital skills into it. So she got those learners to take photographs. So they were roaming around the center with the iPads, trying to find shapes in everyday objects and then take those photographs. So we have a couple here up on the wall just for other learners to have a little look and see. And it's a talking point or a conversation piece that you can, again, use those digital skills to spread learning with other people that are attending the centre as well. Another option, we're very lucky in our centre to have a green space and a lovely garden. We have a tutor here, Caroline Melhush, that works really hard on that. So we were able to take some learners out, take some photographs, and then we were able to label what those photographs are. So you might decide to put those into a Word document that they can write in beside it. You might decide to put it into a PowerPoint that they can type in beside it. It's totally up to you what end product you want to create with those. But it doesn't have to be a garden, because if we think of the spaces that we teach in, and there are a lot of places that teach in urban areas that wouldn't have access to that. So this is where the fun begins. So you're thinking about, how can I use this? So it could be that a student is learning about a particular country. So they could be out and about and they could maybe photograph items from that country in the supermarket, or they could photograph if there is particular landmarks that they see that relate to that country, or whatever it might be, whatever is applicable to your students and the resources that you have around you. Back to our tabbies here, and this is a project that we worked on where, again, we let them out, roam around into our garden here. We had a little walk around the centre and we photographed all the different places and spaces of interest. So this was done over a couple of weeks. So step one, we actually had the conversation about the project. They took the photographs. We came back in a separate class. Then we wrote up. So what are those interesting places? What is a couple of sentences that can be used to describe that particular place? And then finally, I set up a PowerPoint presentation and we talked about how I was doing it. As I was doing it, I just copied and pasted the different photographs in, and I used the writing that they had previously done to type up a description of each of those places there. So this is the end result. So now when new learners come into the centre, if they're not aware of the garden that we have, it's another way of spreading that awareness and helping them. And it's great for the learners to see their work up on the wall and to be reminded how far they've come and the achievements that they have made throughout the years themselves. Another group that I had, we were looking at, it was at level 3 and it was personal care and presentation. And one of the learning outcomes was to be able to distinguish between synthetic and natural products. So I actually went to Pinterest and I got them to set up their own account, and they had one pin board with natural products that they found and pinned into it, and another pin board that it was all synthetic products that they found and pinned into it. And we printed those, and that was then then that learning outcome fulfilled, and that went through further assessment as well. Now, I will say this can be very versatile, and you can use this for many different applications with your learners. Again, if you're learning about a country, if you're learning about a topic, if you have ESOL students, they might pin all the different objects you'd find in a kitchen or a bathroom or a bedroom or household objects or gardening equipment, whatever it might be. But I would make sure you have a conversation with your students about spam, because Pinterest will send numerous emails daily. So just to make sure that we're setting them up for success and they're not then inundated with these emails that they think, I can't be bothered with this. So make sure that you do show them how to send those emails to spam, or even you can do that yourself with them. So you talk them through it, but you're the one that's actually doing that for them. The next particular item we're going to look at is Mentimeter. This can be really useful for a variety of applications. For the ETB day, we used a couple of learners to express what their ETB means to them. The word cloud is my favorite application with Mentimeter. You can use this for feedback. You can use this for things like what are topics you'd like to cover. You could use this for things like, what do we know about this particular subject? So before you start a new subject, you might say to the room, okay, so what is our knowledge about this here? And this is a way of recording that knowledge, seeing where your learners are at, and then taking it from that stage then. Now, if you go into Mentimeter itself, there's a variety of different slides that you can have. On the free version, you have 3 different slides for free. If you then want to pay for it, you can employ as many slides as you like in one particular presentation. So you can use this. We have our scales, whether you disagree or strongly agree. So this can be used for debate, seeing where people feel about particular things, seeing how people feel about the course, so feedback about the course itself, or feedback about their knowledge on a particular subject as well. So what I have learned so far, it's great for seeing where your learners are at, what you need to focus on going forward as well. Now, the great thing about Mentimeter, and I always state this to the students, is that it is anonymous, okay? So particularly with our learners that are attending for literacy and digital skills combined, it's really useful. It normalizes using the computer, using your smartphone as part of your daily routine. But sometimes our literacy learners don't always have perfect spelling. That's why they're with us, and that's totally okay. So I always make a point of saying it is anonymous, so don't worry about your spelling. We are not checking your spelling. This is just to get a sense of how you feel about a particular subject. And once they hear that, generally they will relax a little bit and they're excited to contribute rather than being apprehensive. This is similar to Padlet, this style, where it's like a rolling conversation. So people can add in anything they like on the subject itself, but it continuously uploads as people add more to it. So this one was, what would I still like to learn? And we were adding bits and pieces to that. So sometimes learners don't have a sense of what they don't know or what they still want to know, but it opens that conversation. And once it's up on the board and we're discussing it as a class, as a whole, usually then people say, oh yeah, I've heard about that, or I'd like to do that, or I feel like that too. Or it could have the total opposite effect. So you will know your learners if it's going to erupt in World War III. Make sure you choose your topics carefully, maybe not very abrasive subjects or very hot topics, but that's totally up to you and how you want to manage your group dynamic. So for this next particular piece, I always use the motto, done is better than perfect, because if you wait until you're ready, you're never going to make that start. Okay, so we're going to have a look at a couple of videos, okay? With a smartphones group that I had, I wanted them to see how far they had come, because it can be particular to ICT students, again, because they're always looking at the skills that they need to acquire rather than how far they have come. It's a great kind of benchmark that they can see, yes, I can actually do this now. So we're going to take a look at a couple of videos, and it's great for them to see the differences in their approach and their styles. So this can be something that can be intimidating to some tutors because it is a little bit of extra management in the classroom. It does take a little bit of extra thought and planning with it. But we want our students to be comfortable in our classes, and we want our students to know that it's okay to make mistakes in the classroom as well. So we have to model that behavior for our students. So done is better than perfect. So you can have a conversation with your students and say, I saw this webinar, I had this idea, and let's kind of approach it together. So we are co-investigating the subject rather than it coming from you. So you don't have to have all the answers with this, but you will also learn as you go along as well. I do all the time, and I've learned a lot from attempting this with my learners as well. So I'm going to escape out of this because we need to pop into YouTube. So this is the first of 3 that we're going to have a little look at.
We're going to go into Google Podcasts. We're going to look for Rugby or another podcast on Google Podcasts. So I'm just going to delete this here. I just tap on it there and delete this off here first. And now hopefully we will get Google Podcasts. So I'm now going to tap on Google Podcasts and just tapped on Google Podcasts there, and we're going to write in what we're looking for on Google Podcasts if we can. We have Rugby here that's come up, and I'm now going to press play on it, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and hopefully now we will be. I'm going to press, whoops, there's no sound, so I'm just going to press sound there, and now we're now listening to OTB Rugby, and I am going to fast forward a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more, and I am now going to rewind a little bit more, and I am now going to press stop and pause.
So before we watch our next one, I think it's important just to mention to everyone as well, I have gotten permission from the students to share these videos with you, first and foremost. But also I think it's really useful for the learners in their own mind to clarify the steps. So when they were sharing the steps about how to access a podcast, they had to really think about, okay, well, what do I do? I know how to do this if I'm using it myself, but if I had to explain to somebody else how to do it, it just helps them to clarify for themselves what are the steps. So again, it really helps to improve that depth of learning with them. So we're going to have a little look at, there was 2 groups that did the same topic. So they were unsure if that was going to be okay, and I absolutely encourage it because again, they're learning from each other. It's great to see the outcome from it and the different approaches that they had. So this is a group of 3 ladies, and they're going to teach us how to use Google Maps.
How to use Google Maps. 1. Download Google Maps from the App Store / Play Store. 2. Install and open. 3. Type in the search bar where you want to go.
Wait now until I do that. Okay. Yeah.
Dundrum Town Centre.
Yeah, gone in. Yeah.
Dundrum Town Centre. 4. It will display the map from where you are now. 5. Click directions.
Okay.
It tells you it will take 16 minutes and it's 4.6 kms. 6. Click start. It will give you the route to follow and give voice directions also.
So this is the next group that we're going to have a little look at. And they are teaching us the same particular topic, but they have a very different approach. And one thing that you need to note if you are going to encourage your learners to use their own personal phones is that make sure that there are no identifying photographs or items or anything flashing up on the screen when they're recording. So I had introduced the concept to the learners. I had allowed them to pick their own groups and get comfortable and discuss what their approach is going to be. And with this particular group, I was making my way around and I was saying, will I intervene? Will I not? Because this particular learner on their phone had a photograph of their mother. And I was saying, you know, this is going up on YouTube, so make sure that there's nothing identifying there. But she had recognized this herself, and she had then come to me and asked me, how do I change the wallpaper? How do I change the background on my phone? So I was really thrilled and really delighted, you know, that she was able to recognize, first of all, that she could do that and that she should do that. So we were able to take that then as a learning opportunity and to show the class then, okay, so this issue has come up and this is something you need to think about when you're posting things online about your privacy and about not sharing other people's images as well without their permission. So that's just something that you need to consider, particularly if you are going to upload to something like YouTube. So we'll have a little look at their attempt.
This is the process for using Google Maps. Turn on your Wi-Fi or mobile data. Make sure location is turned on your phone. If you don't have the Google Maps icon on your phone, you can download it from Google Play Store or type in Maps in Google Search. Tap on Google Maps icon, which looks a little like a hot air balloon. At the top of the screen, type in the address of destination. In this example, Fitzpatrick's Castle Hotel. Press Directions. This shows directional maps, time taken, and the best route. Go to the bottom of the screen and press Start. You've got into your car and the Google Voice Play should start directing you to your destination. Have a good journey.
So one thing to note, well, if it is something like Google Maps, making sure that something like home location isn't on there, so that doesn't flash up on the screen, again, if you are sharing it with other learners. So this can be used as an exercise in the class itself, or this can be used to create a bank of resources that then new learners can come in and they can watch those videos. And it's part of that repetition that is totally dissimilar to how you approach it. But again, they're hearing it again in that different way, different voice, different method. So ultimately, what we wanted to do with this project is to boost our learners' confidence and to show them how far they had come. And we wanted to then share that with our learners in the centre. So I had considered creating a QR code for these videos. Okay, so I just Googled QR code generator. This is the website that I used. I found it pretty good. So once it had uploaded to YouTube, I was able to put in the URL and it generated a QR code for me. So we are now going to put this into our newsletter for this year. So this is another way that our learners can share what they have done in a way that suits them. So we talked about QR codes in the class itself, and we discussed the different ways that they can be obtained on a phone. So that's the tricky thing when you're helping your learners, is that different phones might have slightly different methods of doing things. So it's really just a kind of a case of decide in a group whose phone you're going to use, and then you can go through. So rather having to go through every single individual phone and the ways that can be done, that can really take the pressure off as well. So I've given a general description of the different ways you can view a QR code through your phone or scan a QR code through your phone. And again, this comes back to this kind of project style of teaching that we were talking about earlier on. So for some learners, this is really helping to build their awareness of what a QR code is. So they might have seen them around, but not actually known what they relate too. For some, then it might help to deepen their understanding. So hopefully now that class all know, I think they do, what a QR code is and what it might be used for. For others, it's going to help build their confidence, so that if they see it, they might be more likely to test out or to try scanning that QR code itself and prompt them into taking action. So there's some of the examples of how I've used it in my class. For the ETB day that we had last week, we actually had someone come in and help our learners create videos. So they were explaining things like types of shots you can take and what they signify, considering your background when you are filming something. And then they talked about the different jobs and roles in film. And that's really important if you're going to use this in your classroom, because not everybody has to be the camera person and not everybody has to be on camera. So as we saw with the videos earlier on, it could be that somebody writes the instructions, and it could be that somebody reads them out, or it could be that somebody shares the file itself. So you really want to divide and conquer with this particular method, because again, we don't want to place burden on our students. We want this to be an enjoyable experience. So many hands make light work, and there is a place and a space for everybody in that group or in that team. So we're going to have a little look at recording options. So if you're going to do this in your class, what have you got available and how are we going to do this? So we talked about photos. This could be in the classroom, or the student could do this when they're out and about using their smartphone. So you can encourage them to do that. It can be video, as we discussed. It can be the voice recorder. So it can be the voice recorder on your phone, or if you have Windows 10 and up, there is a voice recorder facility on that as well. If you just search for it on the computer, it will come up for you. I have Screencast-O-Matic. That helps to record what you're doing on a computer screen. And there is a couple of NALA webinars on that. So if you go back through the archives on YouTube, they'll tell you or fill you in with more detail. You can also approach this with Zoom and with Teams. So if you get a learner to share their screen and hit record, they can then go into Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or Excel or whatever it might be and say, okay, well, this is how you create a formula in Excel. Record that short little piece and then save it. And then that can be shared with other learners as well. So again, you can divide and conquer. If there's like 10 particular learning outcomes, you might get each one to take a learning outcome in their own right and then share those with the group. So they are sharing their knowledge, but you will have to provide a little bit of information and support and help with this so that they're not totally thrown in the deep end on their own. Now, sharing options. So we've recorded those pieces. Video files are quite large, so it's not going to be a possibility to just email to students. Typically, it's not. And with your videos, you want to keep them as short as possible. So we don't want long rambling videos. We want direct to the point. You want to get in and get out with these. But it's really important to follow the guidelines of your center in terms of what the recommended sharing apps are. In our center here, we work through Teams. So if we teach, we're on Teams. If we're sharing, we use our own DDL-ETB account as well. A lot of our learners will have Google accounts. So what I have done is I have set up a separate @gmail.com account, and I only use that for student work. So again, you want to keep everything totally separate. So some options: WhatsApp, we have Google Photos, we have YouTube, we have our traditional wire from the device into a computer, we have Zoom, and we have Teams as well. Google Photos can be really handy because a lot of smartphones will have it already on there, but you want to make sure that you have given the phone permission to actually upload to the cloud. So if you're helping your learners to find it, sometimes it can be hidden away in a little folder on your phone, and it will look like this little windmill here. Now, this is the important part. Make sure that backup and sync is on. The free high quality version is totally fine, and then you just hit confirm. If you're uploading to YouTube, this can be a little bit tricky, but once you've done it once, you will absolutely fly through it. So the first thing you need to do is you set yourself up with an account. It has to be an @gmail.com email. So again, I recommend that you set yourself up with a totally separate email account that you only use for your school projects. Make sure that you are signed into the correct account. You can have multiple YouTube channels within the one email account, and you can have multiple channels within each account. So whatever way you want to organize it is totally up to you. You might organize it by topic, by class, whatever way suits you. So we're connected to the correct account here. Make sure you click on the little plus sign here, and we're going to upload a video. You can drag and drop, or you can select the files and tell the computer where to find them. So make sure you have your title in, a description of it. You can pick a thumbnail. That's the little image that people will see when they're looking through the videos, or you can allow YouTube to select it for you. You can create a playlist and assign them to that particular playlist itself. And you can have as many as you like. I always say, no, it's not made for kids, even though there's nothing offensive or anything like that in. I just think it's just better to be safe than sorry. Now, this is a particular point that you want to make sure that you click on. So the show more option. This will show you these guys here. I generally don't have chapters in my videos because you want to avoid videos that are long enough to have chapters. I would avoid adding places, because again, you don't want to have your location switched on, or you don't want to upload anything that is identifying to the learners themselves. Tags. If you're doing a piece on hashtags, this can be really useful if you want to make your videos public to show the reaction to videos online or something like that. You can add your tags too. Video language is really important. If you are enabling closed captions, if you select the video language, it actually makes those more accurate and really helps with that as well. You're not obliged to add a recording date or location. Again, I don't. For your license, standard YouTube license is fine, although the other option is Creative Commons. So that's what we are doing at the moment. So I am sharing my creation with yourselves. I have no problem with you sharing that with your colleagues, with your students, whoever, for the purposes of learning. The next piece is important. Allow embedding, publish to subscriptions feed. So embedding, I don't allow. I don't allow publish to subscriptions and feed because I want to keep all of the videos as private as possible, and I never allow people to sample this content. So make sure those boxes are unticked. Again, unless it is a particular project that you want that to happen and you want your students to sample each other's content and see what they can come up with that. I always disable the comments. And you can assign it to whatever category you like. I generally tend to go for education. You can add an end screen, so you can just put in a little picture then at the end by clicking on add. You might have a call to action. You might have a particular question at the end. So what would you do next, or how would you add to this, or what instructions would you give, whatever it might be. And then finally, it's going to check it for copyright infringement. And generally, it's music that will get you into trouble with this. So just make sure that you don't have a lot of popular music in the background with it. Finally, visibility. I always have my videos as private or unlisted. I don't make them available to the public. Generally, the videos that I have are instructions or instructional videos. Generally, the students aren't actually in them. There's no identifiables. But again, you just want to make sure. Some of the learners that we have are very vulnerable. They might be in situations where they don't want to be contacted by family members or friends or particular people. So we want to make sure that we keep our learners safe at all times and we minimize any risk. And I have had learners that have said, I don't want to participate. I have understood the reason why. It's not a conversation we need to have in front of any other learners either. So again, it comes back to having that conversation of there is a role and a place for everybody, and it doesn't have to be in front of the camera, and it doesn't have to be that you're identifying yourself on video, because that can be a barrier to a lot of people as well. So they can write the script, or they can do the instructions, or they can help in whatever way that they are comfortable with. So next, you're just going to save that. It will upload. And if it uploads, it will give you the signal that you can share the link with others. So you might want to email that link out or WhatsApp it or whatever way you work. But I have found that that doesn't happen instantly. So there can be an issue with the link if you share it straight away. So maybe give it a couple of minutes just to fully get there and fully upload to the website itself. So very briefly before we finish, because we're rapidly running out of time. So don't use a personal phone or tablet if you're going to attempt this. Make sure that you're keeping your personal and professional totally separate. Don't store learner videos on personal devices. Don't overcomplicate things. Again, we want to provide the scaffolding to help our learners succeed with this. We want this to be an enjoyable experience for them as well, to integrate their digital skills into their learning. Don't put the burden of work on yourself. You're in this together. It's a co-creation with you and your students, but don't put the burden of work on the learners. They will need scaffolding, they will need support, they will need help. So you're very much in it together. Make sure you use center issued devices or learner devices. Get learners to share the video with you. Make sure you pace yourself. And for anyone who is interested in doing the UDL badge or the Universal Design for Learning, they have what's called a +1 approach. So you find one particular class or one particular topic that you want to test this out with. Give it a go, learn from it, and then see where else. You take one particular thing at a time and then add to that. If you overwhelm yourself or you're going to do this with every class and every topic, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. Do look for identifying information or pictures like wallpapers and change before filming video. So in the case that I mentioned before, we could have just easily swapped the phones. So she could have been using the other learner's phone, but I just thought it would be a great learning opportunity for the group. And make sure that you have fun with it. That is what it is all about. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'd like to invite you all to think about how you can use this in your practice. So I'm going to invite you to unmute yourself and share with the group, or if you're shy, you can add it into the chat. But make sure, again, that we all help each other in this, because you might have an idea that another tutor doesn't, and then that will really help them out in how they can use that in their practice as well. So many hands make light work. So we'll all share the load and help each other out. So over to you guys. Okay, so we have a comment from Laura. Not sure my students are yet at a stage to use this, but it's very interesting and I look forward to using it in the future. And I absolutely agree with you. You don't want to rush this. So again, this could be learners that were really just spreading awareness of the topic. So you might show them and then you might record them doing something or them doing an action. And so like I did with the iTabbies, they're taking the photographs, but then I'm supporting them to actually get them onto a page. And it's really important to recognize that with your learners. Where are they at with their digital skills? So you're just helping them take the next step with it rather than forcing them to take a big leap. We have Caroline is saying, I like the idea of using voice recording as a tool. Voice recording is really useful because some students can be put off by the visual, by actually being on camera. So using that voice recording tool can be a really nice stepping stone to get them using their smartphone or their tablet or actually use the computer as well. We have Kathy saying it's not for all learners, but for a few, definitely. Absolutely, you are correct. Not everybody is ready to take the plunge, but sometimes when we encourage our learners to take a small step into using their digital skills, I always kind of think of it like when we're trying to get toddlers to eat around a table, if one will take the first plunge, then we can get everybody else, and then everyone's eating their dinner, we're having a great time. So sometimes if one learner takes the plunge and they say they're going to give it a go, it can encourage the others, because that's what it's all about. It's encouraging your learners to take the next step. We don't want to force anything on them. We don't want to say, absolutely, this has to be done, but it's really that support and encouragement and making it interesting and fun for them. So we have here from Grace, for my computer literacy learners, I used a flipped classroom approach by video recording how to connect a computer and putting them on YouTube before they have a skills demo for assessment. Excellent. I love this. This is brilliant. And it can be really useful for that flipped classroom approach. So if anyone doesn't know what that is, essentially you're giving the information to the learners before the class. So for their homework, instead of working out what it is they need to do, they're reading the information and then they perform the task in the class itself. So you're there to support the learner with it, but that sounds absolutely fab. So we have from Caro, I think using Menti with a group is fabulous, empowering and extremely useful tool. I would absolutely agree with you on that one, Caro. Thank you very much. So do we have any other questions or comments from anyone on the webinar before we finish up?
You can unmute if you have any questions for Caroline.
I will be sending on the PowerPoint to Fergus, so he will be able to send it out to anyone who needs a copy of it. I also have copies of using Google Photos as well, so if anyone wants that, just let them know, and I'm very happy to share those materials with you as well.
Right.
Hi, Caroline. Sorry, Ferg. Sorry.
Yeah, go on, Michelle.
This is Michelle. I just want to say I actually checked into this. I'm teaching ESOL.
Okay.
I wanted to see what I could use for, was there anything here I could use in my classes, because of course everybody uses their phone nowadays. So for me, it's not so much that they have difficulty using their phones. It's what can I get them to do on their phones at a basic level, because of course their English is not great. So therefore you're talking about basics. So it's kind of, it's the same thing, but just from a different angle. So just found this very, very interesting and very useful, and just things that I can definitely look to introduce in my classes with my students. So thank you so much, Caroline.
Not at all. Thanks for tuning in, Michelle. And just as regards to ESOL learners, if they are at that basic level, the photographs are going to work really well. And then you label them in the class, or you look at the idiom. So things like, we would call it a press in Ireland. That's unique to us. They might not have a clue what you're talking about when you call, I'll put it in the press. Another thing just on ESOL learners that can be really useful is using Google Lens. So with Google Lens, you can take a photograph of something and it will translate for you. So that could be a useful tool with your learners. So best of luck with that.
And I'm trying to discourage my students from using Google Translate. So
okay, well then we won't even go there. We'll stick with the photos.
But thank you.
You're very welcome. Best of luck.
Bye.
Just for Michelle and the other ESOL tutor that I saw her name pop up there. Tomorrow morning from 11 to 12, we have an ESOL digital learning webinar on common apps for sporting.
I've registered for that one too. Unfortunately, actually, I will be probably sitting in a cafe somewhere, but I'll try and log in.
That'd be lovely.
Some people have a great laugh, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Michelle.
Caroline, we might wrap it up there then.
Great. No problem. Absolutely.
So thanks very much, Caroline. It's very clear that you had a lot of preparation done there, and you explained everything step by step really clearly. So even if people weren't fantastic on technology, it was very clearly explained and very usable. So As Caroline said, she's going to send me on her presentation. I'll send it out to all you, and I will have this recording up on the NALA website next week. So thanks, Caroline, again for a fantastic webinar.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for tuning in. Some more messages there. Yes, all positive, all very good, great webinar. So well done, Caroline. Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.